You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
I believe I overcome by the power of His blood. Amen. Amen. I'm alive because He lives. Amen. Amen. Let my song join the world that never ends because He lives.
Good morning, Chicago and beyond. Welcome to Fully Alive, the program of the Archdiocese of Chicago's Office of Human Dignity and Solidarity. I am Dawn Fitzpatrick, your host, and I'm coming to you from Respect Life Ministries. This morning I have a wonderful show ahead of us. I'm going to welcome to our program Jeannie Mancini, who is the current president of the March for Life in Washington, D.C. She was appointed to the role of president of the March for Life Education and Defense Fund in 2012, and she proudly directs the iconic organization committed to restoring a culture of life in the United States, most notably through the National Annual March for Life in Washington, D.C., which is always held around the anniversary of Roe versus Wade, and is certainly they are working hard to grow the state March for Life program. Her responsibilities there include frequently speaking to students, pro-life groups, churches, pregnancy centers, and other other groups nationally and internationally. She also serves as a consultant to the U.S. Catholic Conference of Bishops Pro-Life Committee. She's testified for Congress, for the U.S. Congress, and regularly consults and meets with and presents to state and federal elected officials, including the White House and the Department of Justice. She previously worked with the Family Research Council, where she focused on issues related to inherent dignity of the human person, including abortion, women's health, and end-of-life issues. Prior to that, she worked for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in the Office of the Secretary, and her federal government experience includes global health policy as well as domestic and international health care issues. She certainly makes frequent media appearances, including MSNBC, CNN, Fox, ABC, CBS, others. She has written some articles. She wrote a book in 2019 called Activists, Portraits of Courage. Or actually, it was included in her. She had some work included in that book. And she was honored in 2020 by the Sisters of Life as the recipient of the annual Cardinal O'Connor Award. She also received the St. John Paul II New Evangelization Award from the Catholic Information Center in 2021. She holds an undergraduate degree in psychology from James Madison University, a master's degree in theology of marriage and family, theology of marriage and family from the Pope John Paul II Institute for Studies on Marriage and Family, and she resides in Northern Virginia with her husband, David. That is quite a resume. Welcome, Jeannie.
Thanks, Dawn.
Oh, my goodness. I just started reading and I was like, I can't leave any of this out. It's all too good.
I'm like, who is that person? She sounds pretty great, but if you meet me, you'll see it's not that way. So, thanks.
It is kind of fun to listen to somebody talk about your accomplishments, right?
It makes me feel a little strange, but
right.
Anyways, thank you.
Sure. So, anyway, it's really great to have you on this show today. I know that the National March for Life is something that I've had a great respect for since I learned about it, like in the early 2000s. I know as a youth minister in 2007 was the first time I went. I worked in Maryland, and it was an easy trip, and the parish paid for me to take a couple busloads, and it was awesome. And then when I went to South Carolina, I started heading trips from there, from South Carolina, taking teenagers, and then coming here, it's been a big deal. We've taken as many as 12 buses from Chicago. So, what an incredible thing! How did you get involved with that?
Well, Well, first of all, thank you for all those trips that you've arranged and coordinated. That's no small task. Having been a youth minister many years ago and organized March for Life trips also locally, but I mean, gosh, that's pretty impressive. So thank you. How did I get involved? Well, I was asked to join the board of the March for Life and did. And really not long after I joined the board, Nellie Gray passed away, the founder of the March for Life. And at that time, we were thinking about a succession plan and had lots of different ideas. I loved my job. At the time, I was working in pro-life public policy and really thought I'd found like the dream job for me and didn't have any plans to move. But you know how you tell God sort of your plans and then he giggles.
Yep, absolutely.
And tells you his plans. And that was a little bit of what happened. So I took the job and it became a lot more than I was expecting in pretty short order. And, but when anyways, I mean, the board and then, really God in his way showed me that, I was going to do that job, not my job at FRC. And so that was in 2012. And since then we've grown quite a bit. We're now a staff of 15. Growing, especially with our state March program and, working so much. So, and loving it. It's such an honor.
Sure. So I know, somebody said to me the other day, isn't it our goal to stop having to march, But I know that the march continues and I know there's some reasons for that. So why don't you talk a little bit about why the march continues even after the overturning of Roe versus Wade, when that's what we all thought we were working for, right? To go to, we used to walk to the Supreme Court building and we would say, yay, we're going to end this and then, move on. So, So why are we still marching?
Oh, there's so much to be said there, but let me just go off the top of my mind on this one for a little bit. So first and foremost, the overturn of Roe, well, let me back up. When Roe was enacted, so when the Supreme Court handed Roe down, it did make abortion legal in our country. And then 50 years later, the overturn of Roe did not make abortion illegal.
Right.
It allowed states to enact pro-life laws more than they had in the past. And thanks be to God, we've had almost half of the states enact really, really stellar laws. 18 of them, even from the moment of conception, even though some of them are tied up in court. But so half of our states in our country right now have either enacted or looking to enact much more aggressive sort of pro-abortion laws. You could say these are the Californias, the New Yorks, the Illinois of the country, where particularly in California, they're even, they're making their state an abortion destination state, like abortion tourism, where they're actually paying for women from out of state to come and get abortion. So sad. So first of all, there's so much work to be done in those states. That's for starters. But even more importantly, abortion is not unthinkable. So yes, it's true in 1974 when the march started that it began because of Roe, but we'll finish when abortion is unthinkable, when we've built a culture of life in the United States of America. And it's so interesting to me that people think that we would actually just stop marching, because over the years, the march has become the largest annual human rights demonstration worldwide, bar none.
Right.
So the largest annual human rights demonstration. Why, when you consider things like the opioid epidemic or even teen, suicide, or just so much confusion over so many, things that are real, true, and good, why in the world would we end something that is such a bright light, especially for young people in this world? It's one of the few places that everyone in the pro-life movement comes together. So no, we're not finished marching. We will be finished marching, hopefully one day soon, when we make abortion unthinkable, but our work is not yet done.
Sure. Well, and that's one of the things that we're always trying to do, is to help people to realize, why abortion is so wrong. So many people think that it's okay and that it's a good choice, especially later, a little bit earlier in the pregnancy. So we do have to help to move hearts and minds for sure. It's kind of thing. Being a part with the education part of what you do, I would imagine, is related to helping people to really know what we're doing here and what's going on.
Yeah, I in some ways something that I've been thinking about a lot lately is the fact that, our enemy, it's not like Planned Parenthood, or it's not abortionists per se. Our enemy is the lie that abortion is good for women. And I think we will have accomplished our goal when our culture doesn't buy into that lie anymore. And so there's so much confusion. Yeah. So there's so much confusion over that. And within the confusion, the march seeks to be a bright light and provide clarity, as to what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a man, but especially as for the capacity to have a child, how that is a miracle, and it's a gift. It's not a liability.
Right. There's a big misunderstanding there. I think, the culture, or even the other side of this issue, has pushed an agenda that says that it's a handicap to have a child, or it's a handicap to be pregnant and then to be forced to have a child. I mean, this is the way they're talking, right? And for whatever reason, if you're a young woman, possibly single, you can't possibly succeed if you have a child. You're not going to be able to do anything else with your life. Your life will be over. This is the message and the rhetoric that they're selling, and people are buying it, unfortunately. So it's just, I agree with you. It's so important to help people realize just what is a woman, right? The fact that women can do so much more. I was actually at a retreat this weekend and answering in a question and answer kind of session, and that's one of the things I said was, I'm sorry, but women are great multitaskers, aren't we? I don't think that we are only capable of doing one thing. We can handle many and be good at them. It's kind of one of our natural gifts, I think. So we're really being sold short by that rhetoric. So.
Yeah. I mean, to me, when I think about just the inherent dignity and vocation of women, and some of my favorite writings are like the writings of Edith Stein, for example, and how she talked about the fact that our fertility, our ability to be moms, it's sort of that interior femininity, in the sense of being very person-centered, that's ontological. It's part of our very essence. So in other words, not to get too theological here, but it's, we know that we're not made for this earth, that we're ultimately, on a pilgrimage, and that our ultimate destination is heaven. But even the fact that I can be a woman will be true of my soul in heaven.
Right.
And that is a beautiful thing. And the reality of my capacity to be a mom is a big part of that. And Edith Stein wrote some great, especially in her essays in the book called Woman, or the collection called Women, is some great things about, regardless of what job I work or what I do, I have that inherent capacity that is a gift to the world, that the world desperately needs, as women. And part of that is being a little bit more person-centric. And each of us embody that really differently, but absolutely. I mean, there is a tremendous amount of confusion over that. And multitasking, all those things. I think each of us carry, we have a different skill set, and God has made each of us uniquely. But the fact that we are made as male and female is undoubtedly true, and it's very true to our personhood.
Well, and you and I both know, as students of St. John Paul II, he spoke about in Theology of the Body that, it's we are created male and female so that we can see God better. We wouldn't know him the same way. His image of us was male and female so that we could know him better and live life like the Trinity. We can also co-create with God, where if there were no women, and with the natural abilities that women have, there would be no people. So, I mean, what a beautiful thing, right? And God, in all his wisdom, created us that way.
Totally. It's funny. I wasn't exactly thinking like our podcast was going to go in this direction, and I was sitting with a friend last night at dinner, and a young lady walked by we were sitting outside, walked by our table, and she had on this T-shirt that said, "God is a woman." And it sort of caught my attention as she was walking away. And I looked at my friend and I said, God is a woman. Then I said, the thing that she doesn't understand is God is not a man or a woman.
Right.
I mean, Jesus, the Son in the Trinity is clearly male, but God, the Father, we use that term for him, but he doesn't have a body. He isn't a bodied being.
Right.
anyways, we could go really deep philosophically or theologically here, but interestingly, I mean, he does communicate himself both in masculine and feminine ways, including like Psalm 131, where he gives himself God the Father as mother in a way where we quiet ourselves like a child who's been weaned at its mother's breast, you know, and there is something that's very beautiful about that. Right. But I digress, Dawn.
That's okay. That's okay. And now we have to take a break. So we'll come back from the break and talk some more about what's going on in the world. How about that?
Sounds great.
Okay.
By the power of his blood. Amen. Amen. I'm alive because he lives. Amen. Amen. Let my soul...
Catholic Charities' Family Self-Sufficiency Program has assisted thousands of single parents who are working to become more self-sufficient through education and employment opportunities. Our experienced case managers accompany participants for up to 5 years on their journey to identify, address, and break down barriers to improving their quality of life and achieving meaningful goals for themselves and for their families. Professional, compassionate assistance is offered in a safe and trusting environment as participants develop the skills needed to become financially stable and able to support themselves. Every achievement starts with a decision to try. To learn more about Catholic Charities' Family Self-Sufficiency Program, call 847-782-4233 or visit CatholicCharities.net.
Did you know that Catholic Charities accepts car donations? If you're ready to free up space in your garage and put a stop to all those expenses that go along with owning a car, we will gratefully accept your donation, whether the car is running or not. You choose a pickup time that is convenient for you, and we will make the donation as easy as possible free of charge. You'll receive a charitable donation receipt as well. We accept all types of vehicles nationwide, and you will know that your donation is made to Catholic Charities, an agency you can trust. To learn more about donating your car, call 877-786-4483. That's 877-786-4483. Thank you.
Because he lives.
Welcome back to the July edition of Fully Alive, the radio program and podcast of the Office of Human Dignity and Solidarity at the Archdiocese of Chicago. I'm your host, Dawn Fitzpatrick, and I am speaking with Jeannie Mancini, the president of the March for Life, the National March for Life in Washington, D.C. We were just talking about the true meaning of woman and man and why God created us male and female. But we also want to talk a little bit about how things are, the landscape for pro-life work is changing or growing after the Dobbs decision just a year ago. So what do you see as some movement that's happening or some changes that are going to occur, or where are we going with this?
Well, I know I hinted at the fact that we've had half of the states enact good laws. So let me just look at my notes a little bit here, Dawn, and I'll go through what we're seeing here. Okay. So we've got in those states, in the 25 that I'm mentioning, one is tied up in the courts, so it's really 24 right now. But these states have passed life protections for babies at 12 weeks or sooner, but remarkably 23 of the 24 or 25, depending on how you're counting it, protect it when a heartbeat can be detected. And I think it's like 18 from the moment of conception. So, I mean, these are really, really good laws moving in the right direction. And we know that at least 25,000 lives have been saved this year as a result of these laws being enacted after the Dobbs decision came down. In addition, 16 states now offer some sort of funding mechanism that acts as an alternative to abortion. So these, funding streams can help bolster adoption agencies. They can help pregnancy care centers, maternity homes, etc. So these are states like Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Indiana. I could go on and on, but there are 16. Texas famously enacted a funding stream for $100 million around the time that their heartbeat law was passed in 2021.
Yeah, that's so phenomenal.
It's phenomenal, isn't it? And so these are some of the untold stories, I think, right now. Of course, this is not news, but there are well over 3,000 pregnancy care centers in our country. And you compare that to the height of abortion clinics, which would have been like in the late 1980s, early 1990s, and there were about 2,000 abortion clinics. Today, there are around 700 abortion clinics. And so we've been able to flip it. Back in the late 80s, there were about 500 pregnancy care centers, sometimes at that point called crisis pregnancy centers. But today we've flipped that so that where there's well over 3,000. And when you think about those pregnancy care centers, they offer, when you put like a monetary amount to these different services that these centers offer, it's over 100 million in free resources. So these are things like diapers and formula. In some cases, babysitting or counseling or what have you. And then we have the maternity home movement. There are over 300 maternity homes, and these are where women can live for a while. In my neighborhood, there are 2 that are just fantastic. They can live there for 2 to 3 years, helping to get back on their feet, and taking classes, etc. So these are some of the great things happening. And then there are, the harder stories on the other side too. If you want me to, I can kind of go down that road a little bit, like we were talking about the Californias of the world.
But it's just amazing when you start to list all of the things these states have been doing. So they're not only saying we're going to restrict abortion, and in some cases stop it altogether, but they're saying we're also going to provide for women and provide for those children and put our money where our mouth is, which, you and I both know we're always accused of not caring about the woman. It's always, you just want the baby to be born and then you don't do anything about it, which couldn't be further from the truth. But now we're starting to see this happen at a much bigger level. So that's great. I know we do so much for the pregnancy care centers, trying to provide resources and funding. But now if the states are also providing that, I'd much rather my taxes go to that. My goodness, right? Here in Illinois, our taxes are going to abortions, unfortunately.
I'm sorry. Yeah, and of course, that's not popular with mainstream America either. But we do have states like Illinois that are, supporting taxpayer-funded abortion, even though something like 77% of Americans are against that. So, not that we go with the opinion polls, but I mean, it's important when even pro-choice Americans are not wanting their tax dollars to pay for abortion. Maybe that's something for our elected officials to think about.
Well, I've often said that, in this state of Illinois, it's almost like they gleefully come up with the strangest, most horrific thing and say, yes, let's see if it sticks. And then it does. I don't get it. But just the things they're doing to encourage abortion in Illinois, it's not unlike California, with trying to lure people in to enjoy our tourism and have an abortion, and pay for them to come from the neighboring states where their access is restricted. So, and then they, promote it that way as well. So it's just, even with billboards that say, welcome to Illinois where you can get your abortion, it's just ridiculous.
But you know what, Dawn, on that? So it's, just heartbreaking, right? And a quote that has been speaking to me all year long, since around this time last year, it's from Christy Fideli-Slagee, from our favorite John Paul II, St. John Paul II. And he asks the lay faithful to really consider what are the political, the economic, the social, the cultural unrest, the grave disappointments, the really hard things, basically. What are the hard things? And then he goes on to say, this then is your vineyard. This is where you're called to be salt and light. And so I have to say, we know where sin abounds, grace abounds more. And for your listeners who are in Illinois, this is their vineyard.
Yes.
And they're given everything that they need to build a culture of life in Illinois. And it's a lot harder. Don't get me wrong. That's really those are some tough things, but they have what it takes
And they
to do it. And they're called to be salt and light in the vineyard.
It's one of the things that people are always like, oh, isn't it awful? You know, the way Chicago is, the way Illinois is for abortion and for, anti-life. It's not just abortion. I mean, there's other things that are anti-life here as well. And I always say, well, it's true. The laws are bad, and our legislators don't seem to listen to us. But I've never met such a group of pro-life people. There's incredible pro-life leadership in Illinois, and so many groups of people that really step up to the plate and try to be that salt and light, as you're saying, and take it seriously and dedicate their life to it. So,
including you for the past many years. Thank you for all that you've done for Chicago, for the pro-life movement in Chicago for these past many years.
Well, and I know when we first came here, that was one of the things I said, well, I know I'm going to be in a fight, but I'm equipped for it. And if I don't do it, who will? So, right. Beautiful. So, it's important to really step up, especially if that's where God wants you to be. So I feel like he put my husband and I here for the last 9 years, and it's been a lot of work, but it's been beautiful. So it's an incredible.
Thank you for your faithfulness.
Place. Well, thank you too. I mean, you've been in this post since 2012. I remember the Nellie Gray days, but I didn't know her the same way I've known you over the last few years, of course. So, and I don't know if the listeners don't remember, but you came and spoke at our March for Life Chicago, and we had you at our Little Rose dinner as well. And I interviewed you and Eva from San Francisco.
Yeah, Eva Montaigne. Yes. I love Eva. Mm-hmm. She's so good.
So that was nice. And she is part in a couple of people that run that San Francisco Walk for Life. And they usually have a pretty good turnout there, too.
Oh, yeah. They're great.
Mm-hmm. So it's nice. And I think we can, after our break, talk some more about the State March program. But that's kind of where it's going, right? We now need to help to change minds and hearts and remind people in the states how important this issue is. Our Chicago March for Life, or March for Life Chicago, moved to Springfield last year in an effort to raise awareness at the Capitol, which is, I think, what the March for Life, the National March for Life, is encouraging all the states to do, to have a March for Life at the state Capitol where we can really speak to the legislators and raise awareness and hopefully get some media attention. So.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we still, as I mentioned before, we still definitely have a need for the national march. Mm-hmm. I don't think I really went into the confusion over the federal government role. There is still very much a federal government role. Right before hopping on this podcast, I signed off on a letter to our appropriators right now who are fighting so hard to keep like the Hyde Amendment and other, pro-life protections in there. So there is certainly still a federal role, but the states have so much more power, as we've been saying. And so we began, and we could talk more about that after the break, but the State March Initiative is very, very much at the forefront of our organization.
Definitely. Okay, well, that sounds like a good cue to go to break. So if everybody could hang with us, listen to a couple of PSAs, and we will be back, Dawn Fitzpatrick and Jeannie Mancini, to talk some more about the state of the world after Roe.
For more than 20 years, Catholic Charities Adult Protective Services has been advocating for seniors who are the victims of abuse, neglect, confinement, or financial exploitation. With our partners at local, city, and state agencies, our trained case managers follow through on every concern that is brought to our attention in a cooperative way to ensure that our seniors are safe and protected. According to the Illinois Department on Aging, last year nearly 21,000 cases of elder abuse were reported in Illinois. Of these, only 5% were reported by seniors themselves. So raising awareness is an important part of this issue. If you are concerned about a senior you know, call 800-252-8966. That's 800-252-8966. With your help, we can stop elder abuse and look out for the seniors in our lives.
I am a seminarian.
The church needs compassionate and well-trained priests to help guide each of us through life.
What inspires me, what draws me always to the priesthood is continue to see priests be a beacon of hope for other people.
You can play a part in the education of these young men as they prepare for a life of service to others.
I want to be that beacon of hope too, and it sets my heart on fire.
To support our seminarians, make your gift at archchicago.org/seminarian fund or call 312-534-7959.
The cemetery ministry is a core ministry of our Catholic faith tied to the corporal works of mercy. It's comforting to know that our Catholic cemeteries are caring for the remains of our loved ones awaiting the resurrection. There are 44 Archdiocese of Chicago Catholic cemeteries willing to help you in your time of loss. Call 708-449-6100 or visit CatholicCemeteryChicago.org. Catholic Cemeteries, serving the Catholic community since 1837.
You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Thanks for letting us be part of your morning. Now again, Catholic Chicago.
Welcome to the second half of the July edition of Fully Alive, the radio program and podcast of the Office of Human Dignity and Solidarity at the Archdiocese of Chicago. You are listening to Dawn Fitzpatrick, and I'm speaking with Jeannie Mancini from the March for Life, the National March for Life. And Jeannie, I think we have a big announcement to make. Do you want to make the announcement or should I? You do it.
Okay, I'll do it.
Okay.
Well, we have, after so very, 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 very many months, I want to say like 7 or 8 months, we have been searching for the perfect candidate for the executive director of the March for Life. And we have finally found that person and are just so excited about that. And that person is Dawn Fitzpatrick.
Oh, I'm so excited. Yes, and it's kind of with a kind of bittersweet announcement because I'm super excited to be working with the March for Life, which as I said, I've greatly respected and promoted so wholeheartedly since I discovered it in 2006. But now it's like I woke up and all of a sudden my dream came true. I'm going to be the executive director of the March for Life. So that's just so incredible. And I thank you, Jeannie, for that opportunity. So I think the first thing we should talk about is every person I've told this to has said to me, oh my gosh, what's happened to Jeannie? And I said, okay.
Where'd she go?
Right.
Yeah.
She's the president. I'm going to be the executive director. So why don't you talk a little bit about what this is going to mean for your role so that everyone knows what you'll be doing as well as what I'll be doing.
So you're not the first executive director that we will have had at the March for Life. This, believe it or not, it isn't a new position, but I do think you're the person for the time and the one who's going to embody it in a way that we haven't been able to quite yet in the history. And that is the person who's running the day-to-day organization. We have so much going on day in and day out. And it's really hard, impossible, I'd say, to do a good job of running the organization and then also being the person who's kind of more outward facing in the sense of doing a lot of meeting with donors, doing a lot of media, public speaking, et cetera. And so where I think that you will be I know Dawn will be doing a little bit of that. That will be like 90% of my job.
Right.
Whereas right now that's maybe 25% of my job. But for a long, long time, we've been trying to move in the direction where I'll be more very rarely in the office and more doing kind of the outward work. And then Dawn will be working with our phenomenal team, leading us in the strategic direction, also overseeing development in the day-to-day office and what have you, and helping to have a lot of input on the State March program, et cetera. Right. So there's no lack of work to be done or leadership needed for all of the work that we're invested in right now.
Right. Well, I don't think people realize what a big organization it really is. I think they think, okay, so they run a big event, right? And it's a huge event, but there's so much more to it. And I think anybody that's on your email list should see that there's so much going on, because you're commenting on everything that's happening and sending information and pointing people in a certain direction, keeping people engaged, among other things all year long. So that's, a big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're not on our email list, check us out at marchforlife.org and marchforlifeaction.org and sign up for our email list. But you just hit the nail on the head. If I had a nickel for every time I've been asked, what do you do after January? I would be a very rich woman. But I wish I had a lot of time on my hands. And that's not something that I'm rich in, a lot of extra time, because we are busy. I like to think that you open the door a crack, for God to work in the pro-life movement and to do different things. And he just kind of rushes in. And that is our experience here at the March for Life. We are a very happy crew, but a very intensely working crew as well, with ebbing and flowing in our seasons. But there's no lack of amazing work to be done.
Well, and it's funny. The other thing that everybody keeps thinking is that this is a project under the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. I'm like, no.
We're non-sectarian, so we're not inherently religious, even though we work very closely with all of our religious brothers and sisters. And I myself am a very devout Catholic, but and obviously, Dawn, you are too. But no, we're non-sectarian. In fact, we won a lawsuit on the merits of science and natural law. I mean, that we don't have to cover abortifacients in our health insurance. It's not anything related to some of us being religious that work here.
Isn't that funny that they try to draw that line? Well, you're not a religious organization, so you have to cover these abortifacients, and you have to allow your staff to terminate their pregnancies. And so I'm glad to hear that you stood up for that, right? As should anyone.
We did, and we won.
Yes.
It was shocking. So we went up against Obamacare, not knowing what to expect. We were really backed into a corner. I would have preferred not to have to go to court over this. And we were looking at all sorts of different ways that we could try to join up with someone else, but nothing fell into place. And so we fought, and we had ADF, Alliance Defending Freedom, fight on our behalf. And thanks be to God, we won. It was such a wonderful victory.
That is. Yeah, for
sure.
Yeah. Gosh, but that's one of those things I hadn't really thought about, but I'm glad to hear that happened and that you won, because I'm going to be a part of that, obviously. And I don't want to cover any of that stuff. So, so very good, very good.
And not only does it impact the march, but then we became, for other groups that are non-sectarian and are pro-life. So in their articles of incorporation like ours, it might, state that they exist to defend and protect life from the moment of fertilization or conception. And so we then become legally sort of the banner. So other groups are also able to do that because of us, which is remarkable.
Right. It's like you set a precedent. So that's
exactly
great.
Right. That's what I was
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the State March program and where you see this going, and how I'm going to help you with that, in addition to Felicia, who is the Vice President for Government Affairs, of course.
Yeah, so our State March program began in earnest, I guess you could say. We were really kind of thinking and praying about it for a few years, notwithstanding that we're non-sectarian, but in our own way, we were praying about it. But it began in earnest in 2019. In April of 2019, we had our first kind of from nothing State March, so to speak, in the sense of, I know we had come along forces like with Chicago and with Maryland, but we'd never done one from nothing, ex nihilo. And so the first one was in Virginia, in Richmond, and it was just a few months after the then Governor of Virginia had made some really horrific remarks about abortion even after birth, and he's a pediatrician. And I think in part because of that, but also because it just by God's grace, it was very successful. We had 7,500 people come out for the first one. In fact, the Capitol Police at Richmond told us it was the largest event that had ever been on the grounds of the Capitol besides a gubernatorial inauguration. So that was exciting.
That's big.
So it was our first one. we had big plans for 2020. We were able to do Virginia again. So we did our second annual, and then COVID, of course, hit. So we had to kind of put a pause on it. But we were back up in 2021 towards the end of that year. And then anyways, all to say this year, 2023, we're in 8 states. We've already done 4, and then we'll do another 4 in the fall. So we've done, we did California for the 3rd, Connecticut for the 2nd, Arizona, our first official partnering with them, and then Virginia for the 5th. And then in the fall, we'll be in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and North Dakota. Next year, we'll double to 16, and we hope to double again to 30 or 32 the year after, until we're in the next 5 to 6 years in all 50 states. And so the State March program is run by our Director of State March Initiative, which is Erin Getz. And then that sort of sits under the auspices of Government Affairs, which Felicia heads up.
Right.
And so John will be involved on the periphery, giving advice and giving, feedback and what have you with that. But we're really excited to have you as part of that.
Well, having run the March for Life Chicago for several years, I have a little experience there. So I'm excited to be able to kind of share that and see where I can add, for sure.
Definitely. We're so excited to have you and have your perspective in that way, but in every way.
It's very exciting. But anyway, so right now, I think your goal is 50 marches in 50 states. Is that right?
50 marches in 5 years. Yes.
5 years.
50 states in 5 to 6 years.
Okay.
All 50 states in all 5 to 6 years.
So that's, I mean, it's a lot, but it's certainly doable, right? You're not making any goal that would be impossible.
No, I mean, it's the fact that it may sound like no big deal, but the fact that this year we're in 8, next year we'll be in 16. We've spent a few years really kind of fine tuning, and there will still be a lot of that, but we're able now to grow that quickly without crushing the organization.
Mm-hmm. So somewhere like California, I know they have several marches. But you're focusing on trying to grow these marches in the state capitol. So tell us a little bit about what that endeavor is, why that endeavor is, I guess. Yeah.
That's a great question. So I think what you're getting at there is what makes us different from some of the other marches in California. But so our state marches are very much modeled after the national march. And so we have a few criteria that are in place. One is that they be at the state capitals. There would be very, very rare occasions, like Chicago a few years ago would have been one of them, that we'd not do it at the state capitol, but really Chicago is the only one that we ever did that. And now it's great that it's moved to Springfield. But so they're always at the state capitals because they have an advocacy side to them and a call to action. We often are on the steps of the state capitol. I would say with 1 or 2 small exceptions, we do the marches when the state houses are in session. And for every state that's different, but for most states are in session in the first quarter of the year. Some states go year round. For example, Ohio has a year-round session. California has a year-round session. So Pennsylvania has a year-round session. So there are a few states that are a little bit different. But so the thing that separates us from some of the other marches in California, for example, is that we do have that legislative bent to it. We're really taking the voice of the marcher in the public square, so to speak. So West Coast Walk, which I absolutely love and am a huge fan of, is very much more focused culturally. Like they've never, ever had a politician speak. I know for certain about that from having been in contact with Eva about that, where we always have that as one small portion at the national and at the state level. One Life LA, I've never been, so I can't speak to that one.
I went to that one.
Except that they're very much, they've got like a kind of a whole life thing. They're more of a, I would say more of a human dignity march than specifically a beginning of life march where they, tackle like anti-human trafficking and all sorts of other things like that. And they're just historically, of course, the March for Life is the oldest, beginning in 1974. West Coast Walk has been around, a really long time. I want to say 15 years, maybe or so, quite a long time. One Life LA is newer, maybe last 5 years or so.
Okay, it's break time again. So if everybody can take a break, and when we come back, we will finish talking with Jeannie Mancini and and continue talking about the March for Life.
I was covered in sin and shame. I heard mercy call my name. He rolled the sun away. Amen. Amen. I'm alive because he lives. Amen. Amen. Let my song join the world and never end. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, every fear is gone.
Community is core to Catholic Charity's founding mission. For more than 100 years, we have met people and families where they are, serving anyone in need, regardless of their faith, gender, race, or ethnicity. As our world absorbs the economic, political, and social aftershocks of the pandemic, 50% or more of the 6 million people living in Cook and Lake counties have little or no savings. They are a paycheck away from zero. We are deeply grateful to everyone in the Catholic Charities community who partners with us to alleviate the suffering of the people we serve and offer them a better path forward. We are witnessing a message of mercy and hope to a world very much in need. Learn more at CatholicCharities.net.
People always say, how can you spend your day with 3-year-olds? Seeing the changes that they go through and just the journey and how they grow, this is a very rewarding job. Even though at the end of the day, we're not the highest paid people on earth. And when I have a parent contact me and say, my child loves school, that to me, I'm setting that foundation for their love of learning. Because really, you are changing lives, you are molding lives.
Shape the next generation of leaders. Teach. Apply today at archchicago.org/schooljobs.
Do you have an old bicycle that's not being used? Consider donating it to Catholic Charities Veterans Bike Project of Lake County. Skilled volunteers are refurbishing bicycles to make them safe and ready to be used by veterans to get to and from their new places of work. We also gratefully accept financial contributions that are used to purchase bike helmets and other safety accessories. Our veterans have faithfully served the United States, and now it is our privilege to serve them. For more information on the Veterans Bike Project of Lake County, call 847-782-4219. That's 847-782-4219.
Amen. Amen. I'm alive because he lives. Amen. Amen.
You are listening to the last segment of the July edition of Fully Alive, which is the radio show and podcast of the Archdiocese of Chicago's Office for Human Dignity and Solidarity. And I'm Dawn Fitzpatrick. I'm talking to Jeannie Mancini from the March for Life in Washington, D.C. And actually, I guess I should say this is my last segment of the last edition of Fully Alive also, since that's kind of what I'm implying if I'm leaving, right? That I won't be doing this show anymore. So it's been a wonderful thing. I just love doing this show. So anyway, this is the last one. But I'm going on to the next thing, and sometimes God calls us away from what we've been doing. And my husband and I were talking about how, we kind of planted seeds and kind of leave them along the way, because we started in ministry in Maryland before, and then we went to South Carolina, and I was a youth minister there for 7 years, and came here to really lead this ministry here. But we always have to leave that behind at some point. We feel like we're going full circle, going back to Maryland now, but in a much different position than when I was there before. So very, very forward-looking, really looking forward to what we're going to do and how we're going to grow. We were just talking about the state marches and how important those are going to be to the country going forward, and just to helping keep the issue alive and helping people to realize and just know that we're fighting for life. We're not fighting for a woman's autonomy, which is what they're trying to say it's all about. We're fighting for life here, and a woman can certainly be autonomous and growing in her own way as she is a mother, and it's a beautiful thing. That's how God created us, right? So, all right. So with that, what are some of the things? I know you started to talk about also that we have to keep this march alive in D.C. for several reasons. First of all, it is a way that brings people together, and we do see the solidarity we have in this topic with so many thousands and thousands and thousands of people coming together for the issue once a year, in spite of the weather, right? At the time when the original law was passed, or I should say the decision came down in 1973. So that's why we have this in January. It's not a comfortable time, but it's a super uncomfortable topic, right? So we have to make ourselves uncomfortable sometimes, or be uncomfortable to make a difference. But it's also important because there are still federal laws that they're pushing for. So you've actually changed the route last year away from the Supreme Court. It's like we made our difference there, right? Now it needs to go over to the legislature and to the Congress, where they're now trying to pass laws to make it easier and easier and to have abortions all over the country, and harder to stop abortions all over the country. So we still have to have our voice heard there.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad when you're just seeing things on the news almost every day about a law that they're proposing to end more life, really. So, we really have to work to keep the issue alive and help people to realize the sanctity of life. And of course, children deserve to be considered people even before they're born, as also we know that abortion really does hurt women, although the word on the street is it's helpful, right? And I know that, and my listeners probably remember too, that I run Project Rachel here in Chicago. And so I get to talk to people firsthand who have experienced abortion in their life. And I know for a fact that they're not happy about it. It's really kind of made their life miserable. Often they have kind of a version of PTSD as a result of their abortion. And it's not easy to get over that, And unfortunately, there's a lot of psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors who don't understand the hurt that a woman has from abortion, and they try to tell her that her issue is with something else, which leads her in the wrong direction and often just makes the depression worse. So we need more. We need people to love everyone, to love women, and give them real options, which it sounds like, as you're saying, many of the states are enacting laws to actually put funding in place to really help women who make a choice for life, whether it's give them a place to live, whether it's to give them resources they need, like baby supplies, help them with education, just to help them confidently choose life and know that they will have support and love as a result. So all of this is a big part of the March for Life too, making sure that that happens, and that we can encourage people to take those steps and encourage legislatures around the country to take those steps to really give people choices, put our tax dollars where they really should go. And by telling a woman that she has no choice but to end the life of the baby in her womb causes more problems than people care to admit. So, yeah.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I agree with all of the above.
Of course. Of course you do. This is what you do. I know when the last March for Life Chicago that I helped manage, we were also raising baby diapers, and we gave away thousands of diapers. People donated just boxes and cases, and then we found, the pregnancy centers that would benefit from that, so that they had them readily available to give to women when they said, my baby needs diapers. Well, here you go. They are for free. And it's so nice. We have so many resources to help women that don't cost that woman anything. Just because there's good people out there who want to take care of the babies and the woman. So,
Right.
it's so funny that the government, or some Illinois government anyway, and some other governments are fighting against a place that wants to give free resources. Why is that a problem?
Right.
But it's like,
Right.
no,
If we're for free will and choice and what have you, why would just something like that be of any kind of threat or a bad thing? It doesn't make any sense.
well, and it's really come down. The other side calls themselves pro-choice, but they're really just pro-abortion. It's not about giving choices, because if it was, then they'd say yes. Let's non-discriminatorily put money in all these places, and then people will have choices. But no, that's not the way they go. So it's not the way they roll.
Right.
But anyway, working to help people realize what the choices really are. I think that's part of our job. And we always, we always talked about. When I was a youth minister, every year we took the same shirt and we just changed colors. And we did this the whole 8 years I was there to take them to the March for Life. And the shirt, all it said was "Choose Life," which we always thought was kind of an action step, choose life, but it was also a play on that, right to choice, right to choose. Because we were like, well, if you want to choose, then you should be choosing life. So, but
Nice.
and the first year we did that, and then we thought, that's such a great thing. Let's just keep changing the color. So it was kind of nice. But anyway, that's what we're helping people to do with this March for Life, is to really choose life and to realize that that's really the only choice. I mean, if we don't have life, then what do we have?
Yeah.
Yeah,
we have a different theme for the March for Life every year. And one year it was basically March for Life. It was pro-life and pro-woman go hand in hand, but the sub-theme was that life empowers women. And I'm just thinking that as you're saying these, there's all of these like false ideas of a false good of abortion, et cetera. But the truth is that choosing life, it's not easy. It's very sacrificial, but it's empowering for women.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here to do. Let's empower women to choose life by letting her know that she's loved, by giving her whatever she needs, the support, the education, the supplies, whatever she needs, that she's afraid she won't have, she will. And I know that sometimes that's a really scary thought if you're all of a sudden find yourself pregnant, or you realize there's some difficulties with your pregnancy, or a baby was conceived in a less than desirable way, then it's a scary moment. But knowing that the support's there, knowing that there are people who love you and want to help you and walk with you and hold your hand, and it's much more empowering to give birth to the child and to raise that child, or to make a life affirming decision for adoption or something like that. So. All right, well, our time is coming to an end, and I hate to say goodbye because this is the last time I'm going to do it. But I'd like to thank you all for listening to me for all these years on Fully Alive. Also, just for working with us in the Respect Life ministry to bring life to the forefront, to build a culture of life. And I'm sure if you want to come to D.C., you'll see me there. And hopefully I'll send an email out that everyone will get, right, Jeannie? So
absolutely, yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for being with us, Jeannie, and I will see you soon in Washington, D.C.
Look forward to it.
All right.
Thanks for having me, Dawn.
Thanks for being here, and God bless you, everyone.
I was dead in the grave. I was covered in sin and shame.
Join us every Monday through Friday at this time for Catholic Chicago. You can stream our programs live or listen to past programs by visiting our website, archchicago.org, and clicking on Radio TV. And please connect with Catholic Chicago on social media.